Hey guys, welcome to the Shunya studio. Today I'm gonna show you my process of how I make my drums sound alive and full of character. I'm gonna be using the Addictive Drums VST, but you can use any drum VST that you have, or even if you have, samples, you can use them because I'm not gonna be using any of the advanced features of Addictive Drums here. So this video is gonna be in two parts. The first part is how do I program the drums, right? Because a lot of the life in the drums comes from the performance. And if you don't have a real drummer and you are not a drummer yourself, then it can be very difficult. But um, there are some things that you can do to make MIDI drums sound really good. So we're going to start with that, and then the second part is going to be the processing, in which I'm going to cover compression mostly, which is really, really important. I'm not going to be touching on EQ so much because EQ kind of depends on the exact samples that you have and the kit that you are using, and also the context of the track. So, not going to be focusing on EQ so much. So, let's begin. I've set my tempo to 90, and I'm just gonna record a 8 bar loop here. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so yeah, you might be thinking that I have not recorded any overheads or hi-hats or anything, and that's my process of doing it. So on the first go, because I'm not a great finger drummer, I record the kick and the snare, or if there are any toms, and then in the second channel, I just duplicate it, and then I record the hi-hats and the crashes. So I'm gonna do that, but before that, let's look at the performance. And of course, it's not perfect. Like you can see, it's kind of all over the place, but it's a good thing. Okay, so instead of using the groove pool and all, what I do is I record this based on how I'm feeling the groove, right? And of course, there's going to be latency, there's going to be all sort of performance issues. So I am going to quantize it, but I'm not going to quantize it 100%. So what I do is I sorry, I go to the quantize settings and I change this to 1/16th, and then I make it like 95%, something like that. Then I hit apply. So it does correct the timing a little bit, but it's not robotic. So you can still see that it's a little bit off the grid here and there, but you know, like this one. But it's really gonna help in having that groove, right? So yeah, now that we have fixed the timing, let's do the same thing with the overheads. Okay, let's do that. Very bad performance, but I think it will work for this video. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm actually gonna remove these crashes, and actually instead of removing, I'll just move them here because I don't think we need that many crashes. And I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna quantize settings, which should be the same, and apply. Okay, so now let's listen to this. And let's make any changes if required. Yeah, I think that works. Of course, the beat can be better and all, but I'm not gonna focus on that because this should work enough for us to go into the next part, which is the processing of these drums. But before that, what I do is I separate this into separate, channels, separate audio channels for kick, snare, overheads, and toms if there are, which we don't have in this case. So I'm just gonna separate the kick and snare because I want to individually balance them later. So let's do that. So I just duplicate it, and this can be a snare. This is the kick. So I'm just gonna remove all the snares from here and take this and remove the kick from here. So that's it. Okay, now let's group it. So before we individually balance these three sounds, I think one mistake that people make is try to get a good balance without putting the drum kit into a room. And I think that that's a very important thing because the only way we know what is the right balance is by listening to drums in real life, right? And we never listen to dead drums. We have listened to drums in recordings or in live concerts, and there is always some kind of a, reverb there, right? So what we're gonna do is put the skit into a room first, right? And this might not be the final reverb that you will use, but it is just to trick our brain that we are listening to this drum kit in an actual live room, and that will help us balance these three, sounds. So I'm gonna use the Valhalla room. Let's make it around 1.5 seconds, no pre delay, and just a little bit like 9% or something like that. This should work. Now let's listen to it. So, what I'm gonna do is let's start with the snare, okay? And then we'll bring the kick in and the overheads when it sounds, and we'll stop when it sounds good to us, right? So just close your eyes and listen to it. Do not look at the levels. And just imagine that you are in an actual room with a drum kit and you're listening to the drummer. How would it sound, right? Like, how would it sound naturally? Sorry. So I hope you can see that putting these drums in a room really help us getting the right balance. And of course, the right balance is subjective. Yours might be different, but um, this is how it sounds, good to me. So the next thing that we're gonna do is compress the kick a little bit. So for that, what I do is I use the SSL E channel. If you don't have this, you can literally use any compressor, but I do like this one. It's really good for drums, and I also use a little bit of EQ here in almost all the drums I process, so that's why I like this for drums. And I compress the kick and snare separately um, for this, you know. And of course, there'll be one more layer of compression at the mix bus level, which is at this global track, the drum track. But I'm gonna start with this. So for compressing drums, because they have a transient and we want to preserve that transient, um, the settings that we want to use for in a compressor is slow attack and fast release. And I just want to show a visualizer to you to help you understand why we use these settings, right? So this is a really cool visualizer that I found. So I'm going to show you exactly why we use slow attack and fast release. So imagine if this is a drum hit, right? Let's say this is the first hit of a kick, and this is like a second hit, like a ghost note or something like that. So because the threshold is open, there is currently no compression. Let's keep the ratio to 4 and let's make it a slow attack, right? And release is fast, so that's fine. Now let's reduce the threshold so that it starts to compress. Okay, let's say we stop here. Now you can see that the transient here has reduced. The body of the drum sound has also reduced, right? So now we use the makeup gain to make sure that the body of the drum sound is almost the same, right? So let's do that. So I think this is like kind of almost the same. So now you see that when we use a slow attack and fast release and we keep the body of the drum sound as it is, you can see how sharper the transient has become, right? And even this next one is much more than how it was before. And the reason why we keep fast release is so that after this phase of the compression, the release happens quickly so that this transient can also be processed. If I increase the release here, then you will see that the second transient will actually be lower in volume, right? Which is not what we want. So we want fast release and slow attack. Okay. So the SSL channel automatically has a very slow attack. Um, just make sure that you're not using this fast attack feature here. Yeah, this light should be off. Okay, so now let's listen to the kick drum. Sorry, I was using the wrong threshold for some reason. But yeah, let's listen to it again. So I think you can hear what we were trying to do, right? That the attack of the kick is a little more than how it was, and the overall sound. Let's try to level match it if it's more. Actually, I think you can hear that the volume is not much higher. It's only the perceived volume that is higher, right? But the drum sounds more full and has that tail, and also has a better attack. One more thing that I like to do is I just add a little bit of 30 hertz to kick drums, um, because most of the samples that you use don't have that. And unless you have a sub bass in the mix, this really helps in most rock mixes. Before and after. Actually, it has gotten a bit louder, so let's reduce it a bit. Yeah, now it's almost there, but the character of the kick drum has completely changed. Now we're gonna do the same thing um, with our snare drum. Of course, we're not gonna use the EQ here. Let's listen to it. Yeah, that sounds much better to me. For the overheads, what we're gonna do is instead of compressing, we're gonna saturate them, because there we don't want to increase the transient so much. In fact, we want to reduce it a bit in a way, and add saturation so the highs don't seem very pointy and harsh, and sounds richer. So what I like to do for overheads is use a decapitator. Yeah, it's very subtle, but I think it does help. Now in the main trumpers, um, actually one thing I want to do is apply a low cut now to this drum so that it's not affecting the kick drum so much and making the sound boomy. And of course, when you are using this entire processing in a mix, you probably don't want your reverb to be like that. You want it to be like a send, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Now what I do is in the drum bus, I like to add 1176 and use the same thing, right? So it's like serial compression. So the same thing that we use for kick and snare, which is slow attack and fast release, we're gonna do the same thing here, and we're not gonna compress too much, like only around 3 dB or so, just to add that extra layer of thump. Actually, I think you can hear that the final sound is, you know, quieter than the original, but it sounds much better and fuller. I don't know why this. Oh, it's probably this one. Yeah. Okay, one last thing that we're gonna do is use a parallel compressor. And the parallel compressor is actually not really used for compression. You'll see that it's actually used for saturation, um, to make the sound richer, to have more harmonics in it, because the compression part we have already kind of done to increase the attack of the drums, right? But now what we're going to do in a parallel compressor is to squash the sound completely. So this is going to be fast attack and, slow release, so that the sound is completely squashed and it has a lot of character and harmonics, and it's almost dead in terms of dynamics. And then we're gonna add like a little bit to the sound, to the original sound. So that's actually, it's called parallel compression, but in my opinion it's not really compression. It's not doing the work of compression, it's doing the work of saturation, if you ask me. So let's do that. Let's send this completely to a parallel compressor like this one. So in this channel, I have added 1176 again, and this time I'm gonna go for a really fast attack. Sorry, I get confused in this 1176. So the fast attack is here and slow release. Yeah, I hope I did the same here. And yeah, good. Okay, yeah, let's scale it. So now if you only listen to the parallel compression, it would sound like this. Sorry. Not sure why that happened. But anyway, so how we dial in the parallel compression is we kill the signal and then we slowly increase the volume here until we hear it, and then we pull it back a little bit. Yeah, so it just adds a little bit of that character. So I hope this helped. Let's do a quick. Yeah, one thing I want to say is right now in the parallel compression track, you can hear a lot of reverb also getting compressed and being brought up, which is not bad, but it might not work in your mix, you know. But the thing is that in your mix, you're probably not gonna have this reverb here, so your parallel compressor will also not have it. So that way, it should be fine. So let's do a quick before and after of this entire thing, okay? So I'm gonna remove all the plugins, all the processing. And let's listen to this. I don't know why is this not working. Oh, sorry. I muted the main.